Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Zach. I'm here with Eve. We are the directors of Stay Right, and this podcast is called Host Right, which is very fitting. So we're talking about how we're growing our own business that is grown to 40 plus properties in 10 months, and we're sharing all our tips and hacks. So welcome to another episode. Let's get into it. Eve,
Exciting
episode 2.
times. Yes.
I know. Exciting. How you been finding it? It's like a new thing, isn't it? We're just diving into it, aren't we?
Yeah, we're just going in. I think I'm just looking forward to getting into all the topics that we kind of like brushed on in episode 1 and getting into it more.
100%. I think the first one is like talking about rent to rent and management, comparing the two, because people always go like, what is management? I don't understand this. They just think you just see rent to rent and it's the sexy one.
That is the thing that's out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Management isn't out there.
I've seen people actually talking bad about management, saying, it's not that good, but I don't know about that one.
Yeah, we touched on in the last episode that we've started with rent to rent, now kind of focus on management. So we thought it would be good to get into that in a bit more detail, the differences between the two. And I guess like why management is a thing we're focusing on as well. Yeah,
100%. I mean, because we have 37 of ours are management, the other 3 are only rent to rent. So it clears our preferred option management. So Eve, if you were to compare rent to rent to management? Actually, first of all, you explain what rent to rent is, and then explain what management is, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So rent to rent, like we said, it's one everyone's heard of. Essentially, what you're doing in that scenario is you are renting a property from a landlord. However, basically you're doing that with permission to then go and rent that property out, let it out on a short let basis, on a service accommodation basis, aka putting it on Airbnb and you're hosting guests in that property. People get worried when they hear this. They're like, isn't that illegal? Like, are you allowed to do that? You are, because it's a completely different type of contract that you've got with that landlord compared to a normal rental. You're not saying you're living there and then you don't live there, right? So that's rent to rent. Obviously there's more to it than that, but in summary. And then management is essentially all of the operations that you would do if you were renting a property and running it as an Airbnb. However, you're not renting that property. You don't own it, you're not renting it. You are coming in as the management company to support and help someone that wants to get all the benefits of doing service accommodation without the work. So we kind of offer that as a service with management. You might be managing a rent-to-rent property for someone. You could be managing a property that someone owns. So we're going to get into it more, but hopefully that's a good rundown.
So you literally have no costs in management, nothing, no bills, no rent, and rent-to-rent is everything. You're
the investor versus just the business. Yeah. What did you think management was when you first heard about it compared to rent-to-rent? Because like we said, everyone knows rent-to-rent to start.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't sound as exciting. The problem is because there's no one talking about it. So you see on YouTube everyone talking about rent to rent. It's there in your head. You make sense of it, and it feels like the easier sell because I'll just give the person rent and I'll go make money. Whereas management, it's only once you start growing the business you start to think of management. And we hadn't started when we heard of management, so we're like, but we instantly wanted management. As soon as we spend all that money.
It's going to depend on your goal, right? Like we knew we wanted to scale from the beginning. Management then suddenly started to make a lot more sense. So let's talk about each one. I think we want to talk about management more because, like we said, no one else talks about that. That's the thing that really we do ourselves. But we do work with a lot of rent-to-rent investors as well.
For sure.
So let's go into rent-to-rent a little bit more. What are the benefits of that, like as an operator doing rent to rent?
Yeah, for sure. So what I would say with rent to rent and why it's why it benefits like the operator, there's a lot more cash to be made in rent to rent. When I say a lot more cash, it's on that one particular property, but with the benefits of it, it comes from experience as well. You need to do rent to rent to learn how to then do other strategies. But it's a really good way to get some cash flow to maybe quit your job or to have that extra couple of £1,000 income coming in. So it is, I would say, an easier barrier of entry. But also
Why is that?
I kind of going to rephrase my word there. It's easier barrier to entry to get into there, but the problem is that it requires a lot of money. And all these people say like, you don't need money to get into property. You need money.
Less than buying a house.
Oh yeah.
I think that's where people get it right. It's a cheaper way to get into property.
Our first one cost us 16 grand. Like to give the context, and not all of them are going to be like that. And you can get very creative on how to get the deals, but. Yeah, so that is the benefits of being an operator on rent to rent. There is more money in there.
Okay, yeah. So those are the benefits of rent to rent, right? You are going to make more cash flow when you're doing that. I think as well for starting out, a really great thing about rent to rent is you aren't actually looking after a client. With management, you are going to have clients. So in terms of really learning the ropes yourself and feeling really confident, if you are then going to go do management and pitch to people about that, you can say you've done it yourself. And I know that when we got our first management, it did feel different, and we'll get into that because you do now have a client that you want to look after and you want to do a good job for. Rent to rent, you want to do a good job, but if you do make a mistake, only you guys are going to know about it, right?
You have to start with the rent to rent, yeah. That's really, really important. When would you say, before we get into like what management is, when would you say it's the time to maybe explore like all different options, be creative? It's probably different for everyone.
Yeah. I think when you just feel confident, when you feel like you've done it yourself, you feel like you can show someone that. But it is going to be different for everyone. That might take someone a year, that might take someone a couple of months. We did it after a few months. I think as well, depends on your goal. Like you might just want to get a few rent to rents, and that's fine too.
I think as well we were paying like for a mentor, we paid for a course. We were not just operating it. We had knowledge of months and months and high level knowledge as well. Management then. Yeah. I think let's get into this. Like I think that's rent to rent. Rent to rent is very common. I think a lot of people can find out what that is and how it works. It's very easy. Management.
Yeah, that's the one that I think is more of a like we were saying, a bit of a dark horse that people don't know about.
Yeah, tell it to me. So like obviously I know it, but for the listeners, like explain management in a nutshell, context of it.
Okay, so with management, you're basically offering a service, right? You are offering a service to someone that knows about the benefits of running an Airbnb, but doesn't have either the time, the resources, the want to do that work themselves. We're going to get into it a lot more in other episodes about how noisy of a business that it is. A lot of people don't want to do that themselves, but they want to reap the rewards of that cash flow that is possible when you do a good job with service accommodation units. So our service with a management business is essentially, we're going to do all the work for you. We are going to run your Airbnb. You're going to be completely hands off. We're going to do all the work. And then we're going to obviously then kind of pay you out as a client. And that's all you need to worry about. So for us, you can imagine there's no upfront cost. So as in terms of building a business, there's no cost to setting up a new property because you have an investor, you have a client who is putting that money in, you're managing that, and that's your service. So hopefully that's a good overview. There's different
slight profit on the setup,
yeah. And that's quite a scalable cash flow business if you get it right. And that's why would you say that interested us more back in the early days when we learned about it?
Well, it's really important for people to understand like there's less money in management per deal. Mm-hmm. But the reason why we got excited by it was the volume, because we could take on as many as we wanted. If 10 deals came to us next week, it wouldn't be money doesn't come into it. It's time. That's the only thing. Time and resources. Capacity, So it allows us just to take and take and take efficiently and not just be greedy, because we turn down deals every single week that we don't want to work with because reputation is everything. We'll get onto that. But yeah, it was just scaling. And like you said, we want to grow a full business. This is probably a negative that comes to rent is that, you think about yourself right now. If we had 40 properties in rent to rent, think about it. This is like, I know we've talked about this. Mm-hmm. Let's just say the average rent's £1,000 plus then we got bills, everything. we're looking at like at least, plus our team, like
Yeah.
at least £60,000 overhead every single month.
Yeah.
If something happened to me, or COVID happened, or whatever, we would have all of that money. That's like 1 or 2 months of wipeout territory. With management, there's no issue with that. You can flip them to ASTs if you needed to.
Yeah. And I mean, some people do that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I guess it is a choice, but it's something to be aware of when you're making that choice. You might want to scale rent to rent, but we felt like
the
that.
costs of that.
Yeah, like that was a way to scale. We always say like scale quicker, but I will always add but sustainably. So like those two things have to go together. But we knew we wanted to scale a business, and that made a lot more sense. I also think that it was really nice, and I think I said this in the last episode, but like it's really nice to work with someone and to feel like you've got a win-win and you're helping someone. I love that. There's lots of benefits, and you do help a landlord a lot with rent to rent, right? You're looking after their property, all of those great things. But it's so exciting when you send your client the money that they've made every month on management, because let's get this clear, they're not making the same amount every month. They are directly making the profit from running it as an Airbnb. There's no fixed amount that we're giving them. So that's really exciting when you get to send them more money. Yeah. But there's obviously months where they make less money in the quiet months. So it's a different model. But to be able to work with someone, do you like that? I really like that.
I do like that, yeah. I do. I mean, it's great sending a landlord check for like $4,500. Not an actual check, but $4,500.
Yeah, check.
Yeah, when they're going to get the rent for like $1,800. So that's like before some of the bills. But they're profiting about $3,500. It's crazy. So why would a landlord choose? Let's say I'm going for reviewing, and I'm offering guaranteed rent to this person, so rent to rent, and you come in and you're saying, I'm going to manage this property. Why would the landlord choose you?
Yeah, I think it depends, doesn't it? I mean, you come across different landlords that have different goals. But basically, overall, with direct management, they are making more money. With a rent to rent, you are saying, let me pay you rent and then I'm going to go make loads of money on your property, which some landlords might go, oh, amazing.
They don't want the headache.
I want that fixed, guaranteed income. That's the selling point of that. But some landlords, you say to them, how about actually we team up on this more, and actually we'll do all the work and obviously take our management, but you will get sent what we make on this property. That's going to fluctuate more. And
then what we're taking a commission. So we're taking a commission off the bookings as like an agent for finding that, and that's kind of how we make that money. So it's less than what you'd make on a rent to rent on individual, but those months in like December, January, February where you're losing money, we're maybe breaking even or maybe making a little bit of money still.
Yeah, along with the landlords, which is nice.
So what landlords are right for management and what landlords aren't right for management?
Yeah. I think that there is technically a bit more risk in it, right? Like, because like you just touched on, the money isn't the same every month. So they have to be comfortable or even happy and excited by that, because they are motivated by making more money if you're going direct. Would you find that, like, if you think about clients generally, it is that they are making more? So that's... Yeah,
they are. I mean, I think we're the first, and this is where it's transparent, we're the first to say it's not going to work. Like,
yeah, for sure.
If we think that it's best for them to go on an occupation contract AST, then we tell them. I think the main ones are the sicker tenants. They don't want tenants there. They've had a problem with tenants before, and they don't want that to be dealt. They don't want to have that anymore. Mortgages, big one right now, especially at the time of the recording of this, is mortgage interest rates have gone up. So the rent that they're trying to achieve is not going to get them. So they need to turn to another solution.
Yeah.
And what we're pretty confident in saying is always that we can beat rent by 20%. What they get at least
on average. Yeah.
And obviously, if we don't think we're going to get that, then we're not taking it on. Yeah,
for sure. And I think at the moment, that is a really important point. Not even just mortgages, but even just the cost of, we have landlords where they've had like bills included and all these different things, and they just can't keep up with the cost of running it as a normal rental property. And so their investment's literally not viable anymore in the same way that it once was. So we get to kind of help them and make that investment property a viable investment again and make it work for them so they don't have to sell it. I think, the example I always think about is like, you have a client where their mortgage is only just covered by the rental income. One thing goes wrong, they're wiped out. And then you suddenly realise that they can make more in 1 month than they could in 3 years. Sometimes.
I know.
It's just so exciting.
Do you know what makes me like even more like, and this is like the icing on the cake, when you kind of tell a landlord this, there's like no Section 24 on, and Section 24 is where the interest can't be deducted from the turnover when you're renting it with a service accommodation when you're managing it for them. That doesn't apply. So there's just so many benefits to doing service accommodation on the right property, and it can really work. So with this setup of it, because obviously there's costs, there's an additional cost to landlord as well, which can always sway in one way or the other. Talk about what it's going to cost on average a landlord to do this. Because I think it's really important to do this. Know this when you're going into
like if you're going to go talk to them about it. I think a really good distinction when we're talking about that is, if you are doing a rent to rent, you're the investor.
Yeah.
If you're doing management, you are working with the investor. You're helping them. So that's why, just so everyone's kind of clear, that's why they're the ones spending the money. They're investing
because they're getting the profit.
Because they're making the money.
They're making the money, so they have to put the money in. And there's other ways that you can actually both go in together and call like a joint venture, which is another conversation. Again, another strategy that you can do. But they're making the money. They should be paying.
So there's a couple of things to think about, right? So first one is obviously setting it up as an Airbnb. The furniture. So that the cost of that is obviously going to vary based on their budget. Is it going to be a high-end property? Is it more of a budget one that's more kind of aimed at like contractors and things like that? And obviously the size as well. How many beds are you buying? That alone changes the cost a lot. So you've got that furnishing budget, right? You're setting it up. There's also going to be then some sort of setup cost because of the things that need to be done before it launches to get it live. So that's going to be things like professional photos. Always get professional photos of your property. So important.
I hear it all the time. Yeah. We heard in our course.
Our friend's just gonna do it. Yeah. It feels like the nice thing to do, but actually, the professional ones are super important. So photography, fire safety assessment, cleaning that gets done before you launch, and the setup, and then the listings, and then getting it launched. We're listing on. We talk about Airbnb, but we're listing on 20 something platforms. So there's a lot of work that goes in. Yeah,
the other thing is you can be very creative. There's going to be landlords that want to do it all themselves. There's going to be landlords that don't want to touch it, and that's when you can offer a service where you set it up, buy all the furniture and everything. So that's they're the extra costs. So if you think about what you would spend on that property, furnishing it, getting compliant, and photography,
for those things,
they're going to have to spend that. But obviously, you're then showing them what they're going to make. So. What landlords are not the type of people that want to do this? It's pretty easy, It's probably the people that don't have that much money, or
ones that don't want to invest, ones that don't want the risk. I guess I always kind of say quite old school landlords that just want to kind of stick to what they know often. What would you say when you're talking about management and someone's maybe on the fence about whether they go with management or not? What would you say maybe worries them, and then maybe what pushes them over the edge to do management? If it's right for them. I'm not trying to say we're trying to sell it to people that it's not right for, but
I think someone will get to the point where they've got 2 or 3 deals and they've got that quickly. They've put in whatever the amount of money. Let's say that's 10, 12 grand, and they've gone, I don't have much more money. I need to wait however many months to then put my cash into getting more deals. So they're not paying themselves anything. They're essentially just buying more deals to then eventually help them in a year. So if your main goal is to quit your job, then you're going to struggle to do that very quickly. Whereas
unless you've got loads of money.
You quit your job in 4-5 months. And that was because we took on 4 managements plus 3 rent to rents in a very quick succession. So you get to the point where you're I need to wait. Why do you have to wait? You could go and take on 10 management deals. You don't need money. All you need to do is just go find them. And that's like we talked about in that last episode. If you haven't watched or listened to that, then go back and there's two things that we just did that got our deals.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you have to start thinking, like, there's deals everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And when you realize that you don't need your money, that's when you can start really cash flowing. And maybe it's less than the rent to rent, but if you multiply that, I'd say, what would you say? One rent to rent is maybe 2 management deals.
Yeah.
Maybe less.
Yeah. Depends on the deal.
Yeah. But when you start to get really creative, that you then start managing your own rent to rent deals as well.
Yeah.
And then if you have JV partners where you're going off and managing together with other people, you can then manage it. So that's another kind of conversation.
So let's say someone's trying to pitch their first management deal.
Yeah.
What would you say the things are that landlord, maybe they're thinking about it, obviously you're having a conversation, what do you think the most common things are that they might kind of push back on, questions they might have, like what are the most common, even like maybe like misconceptions?
I can even do it for rent to rent as well, actually, like explain that, but we'll do management first. I think the first thing is they don't know we exist. They don't know management is a thing. They want to do it. And this is what stops them from doing it, is that they don't want to do the work. It is a lot of work. And I would just talk about that. So if a landlord was coming to me and they were interested or they didn't know about it, I would just explain. I would sell to them by talking about other experiences. So what we're doing for other people. So I'd be saying, so we're a service accommodation management company. What that is we take on investors, landlords, those doing rent-to-rent properties. And what we're doing is we're managing that as an Airbnb, doing all the work for them so that they can maximize their money. And normally what we do is we achieve a 20% increase on what they would achieve on a rental. And the cool thing is there's so many other benefits that allow them to even take on home more after stuff. So what we're currently doing is, for example, we have this person, they probably achieve £900 rent. And it's 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. And what we're doing is we're achieving, let's say, £1,600 profit a month on that one particular property.
So what are the pushbacks when you're talking to them?
So the pushback is they're unaware. They don't know much about it. They think, parties, or my property's going to get trashed.
On anything to do with service accommodation, right?
So that's when we start going through our processes, and this is where then your brain becomes your selling, the expertise. We talk about how we charge guest deposits. We talk about how we do inspections. We talk about how we keep it in showroom condition. So when they get that property back, or if it wasn't working for them, then they're going to get it back in the perfect condition, because that's what our guarantee is. So it kind of just suppress it all, and normally it takes a couple of conversations. It's not going to be one conversation.
Yeah, unless they really know about it and they're looking for it. Yeah, then they need to kind of learn about it.
But using other like deals or other things that you've done as an example, rather than like selling them the dream, they're going to start really feeling like that FOMO of missing out.
Yeah. I would say as well, like the most important thing when it comes to management, when you're having those conversations, especially with someone that doesn't maybe understand it, is to go through the numbers, right? Like to really show them, the projections and what you realistically, on average, are going to achieve for them. It's very easy to inflate those numbers. If you really trying to get a deal, don't do that. Be really realistic and really honest with them, because they need to understand, right, that they're not going to make the same every month. They're going to make great profits in some months and less in others. You
have to as well. Yeah. Because if you get one bad deal or you don't do your job and you inflate these numbers, even if they're making profit, they'll complain.
Yeah.
And your reputation is everything.
You're kind of setting yourself up to
are.
fail.
Yeah. Do you know what would be intriguing is talk about like what we would say in rent to rent, because that's quite important. Like it's a very similar kind of conversation going into that rent to rent and management, because you can actually start pitching management after you pitch rent to rent. With that spreadsheet. So if you go in there guaranteeing the rent, and if you go in there saying you're going to do all this kind of stuff, if you then maybe are short with money, you can be really smart by then going, oh, by the way, you introduce the management. This is actually what I'd be achieving. I can actually manage this for you, and you can achieve this.
You can get a piece of the pie, basically.
Yeah, you can actually be achieving this. I just thought that might be intriguing for you. If not, no worries. Maybe you can go sell that deal off. But obviously, maybe you sell that deal off and then manage it. There's just don't be one vision on it, because there's money everywhere, and there's deals everywhere, and you can just monetize that quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I think those projections and like doing practice runs on that and being really confident in that is going to be the number one thing when you are talking about what someone else is going to be making versus just yourself, right? So definitely feel really confident in that when you are going and talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's that understanding, and this goes for yourself if you're doing a rent to rent, like you have to understand it's a 12-month average. It's not the same every month, so you have to look at it.
Yeah, it's different
over a 12-month period. I don't know how many people just share their summer nightly rate and what they achieve in summer when they're talking about what they achieve, but it's not actually
deal sources.
Yeah, it's not. It's not realistic when it comes to profits for the whole year, is it?
No, it's not at all. It's not at all. So I think that's a good understanding of like management versus rent to rent. Like you really start to see one's you're invested in there. The other one is you can just really scale that. The operations of management, because people are probably out there like, how do I pay the landlord, or what happens if they don't pay me my money, or all these kind of problems that come from that. Because basically you're a letting agent. Like you're a letting agent of Airbnbs. That's the easiest way. But you're not a letting agent. But you're not a letting agent. Yeah.
Legally, you're not.
You're not a letting agent. You're not from it. So like, how does it work?
Yeah. So I think, in terms of the money side of things, the most important thing to remember is you were doing everything. It's like hands off for that. So what that means is you're in charge of things such as paying the cleaners when they go and do the changeovers, or sorting out maintenance, for example. So you're in charge of those finances throughout the month, and then you are then paying out to the client what you've kind of achieved for them with a report. So we send our clients every month a report. They get a full breakdown on the bookings, what we've achieved that month, so they can see it as full transparency of what's kind of happened in the month, and then they get their payout. So you're kind of doing like their bookkeeping essentially, right, for the property. So I think that was something to get our heads around, wasn't it, in the early days?
Yeah, we had no idea. We were like, we had this deal. It was our first management, and we were like freaking out. We didn't have a company.
To like the payout.
We didn't have a company set up, and I remember having a call with our mentor, like, we're just waiting on our company. And he's just like, waiting for your company? What are you doing? Just take their money in your other company, transfer it across. It's an intercompany debt, and then you're good to go. And we're like, quick. And then we got the deal done. And then like anything, 1 became 5, 5 became 10, 10 became 20, and here we are.
Yeah,
almost 40.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I think it's really important, like, to understand the benefits, like, outside of what the landlord is to yourself. Just like really starting educating yourself on service accommodation, because when you start to talk to people about things like capital allowance, I'm not going to go into too much detail on it. Obviously, like the Section 24 I talked about before, talking about like putting the money in before pension.
We need like a disclaimer on our podcast. This is not advice.
This is just it's not advice. But like understanding like these type of things, when you go in and this kind of goes back to the question about like selling to a landlord. When you're telling them these things, especially like a developer or someone that's like just recently developed a property, and you're then going about like how they can get capital allowance and that, because now it's a holiday home. They'll just go, oh wow, I didn't know that. And if you give them that little nug of information, they're going to remember you. And when you then are trying to follow up with them the next day or the day after that, they're going to be grateful, and they're going to then want to talk to you because you're the expert. So those type of things just really, really like just dive into the weeds. They're boring.
Educate.
But trust me, I can't tell you how many times it's happened.
What that does, right, is just talking about all that value you can share, you've really got to kind of remember with management is you do now have clients, and that is a whole other ball game, right, in terms of the operations and looking after those clients. But that means it's more of a partnership in terms of the fact that you're helping them more than just paying them the rent, right? So you by doing the things that Zach just said, you're kind of really providing that value and building that relationship, probably more so, would you say, than like with a rent to rent, because
absolutely
they're a client, right? So
you don't want to talk to the landlord in a rent to rent.
Yeah. You want it to be nice and straightforward. But
and some landlords we don't talk to in the management, but it depends. Some of them more hands-on, some of them are just...
But I think if you go into management, right, and like, if you go into it and think, this is how much I'm going to make, it doesn't matter what the client makes.
It's hard.
You're not going to do a good job.
And the problem is that there's people out there that do that.
Because, you know, I don't know what I send the landlord, but I know what I got. That is the wrong attitude. You've got to know what you've got to care about these clients, because if you're going to have them, you've got to look after them, right?
We've seen text messages of people of other management companies saying, well, it's all good, I've got my money, so it's fine. It's just so it infuriates me. Like, that's people's investments and things you're looking after. Like, we treat every property like it's ours. Like, I genuinely feel like we have 40 rent to rents in that like kind of scene, but we don't. Like, it just feels like they are ours, and it's really... That's how you're successful. If you're in this just for money, then you're in it for the wrong reason. Yes, we want money, but your business needs to have core values. Even if you have 4 properties, 10 properties, 20 properties, 30 properties. That kind of leads me to a question. Like, why would someone choose us? Like, if they want to do Airbnb and they maybe they're hearing this, who knows? No sales pitch, but like, why would someone come to our company? What makes us, like, when we're talking about this, stand out? And that kind of talks about what is a good management company.
Yeah. I think it's kind of what we just said, like, that care has to really come across. So if you're wanting to be a good management company, you've got to really focus on those kind of personal skills that you are dealing with clients. I think that if we speak to someone and we say, you know what, this isn't going to do good, don't do it. There's so much power in that. Because we're being honest, we're not saying, do it, because, you know, we're thinking, we're going to make our management on this. It's not about that. It has to be about looking after people and caring about them and giving them value and them feeling like you care, right? That has to really come across. And I think that when we have conversations with people and they go, oh, well, actually, they were really honest. You know, they told us what was a good idea, what wasn't a good idea. They're completely honest with us. They're not trying to sell it and just take it for themselves because they know they're going to get a deal. We're looking out for them. So I think if you are kind of wanting to get into management, that is the kind of mindset to go into it with, right? Like, you've got to go into it really knowing that you've got everyone's best interests. Would you say?
100%. We had a deal pretty much lined up last week that we pretty much ruined in a way. Not ruined, but we gave our honest opinion and they didn't want to go forward. And that's fine. You know, we just said exactly what we would do, and that's what you have to do. And they'll get another one, and it'll be right for them. And I think the good thing about, or how to be a good management company, is that you got like this SOPs, standard operation procedures. You've got everything documented down. You treat every property the same, and you have things that make, especially when you have 40, 50, 60, you make things quicker. So rather than going through one by one, you're looking at ways that you can just make the process quicker. Good. Yeah,
because when you have clients, if they see that quality dropping, you know, that's an issue. If you've got rent to rents and you've not got anyone to answer to other than yourself, you might not even notice that. I mean, it's still just important. But once you have clients, if you stop answering their messages as quickly, if you stop making them as much money every month, like, they are going to obviously pick up on that and not be happy. So you've got to maintain such a high level. And I mean, I could talk about the ops all day, and we will in loads of episodes. We'll get into like running it. Weeds. Like running it as a business. And I love, you know, in my last job I did client success. I used to work with clients, and you kind of do it in a way as well. And I love that, like, looking after people. So you've got to know that you're gonna be happy when you've got a client calling you, wanting to talk about it, wanting to ask questions, right? Like, that's got to be fine. If you don't want to speak to anyone, maybe not going to go down so well.
Yeah, for sure. So, ending on the financial side, what would you say like an average management fee would be that you would achieve, like on a property? Let's say a 2-bedroom property.
It's probably you're the one to answer that question.
You want me to answer that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, like, we have roles in this company. Zach's head of finance, I'm head of ops. I know these things, but I feel like you're better off answering that. Ask yourself that question.
Okay, Zach.
What is the average? I'll ask you, what's the average?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're doing it well, then you're going to see, I reckon, about £500 to £600 per. But on average for the 12 months, I would say about £550 on a 2-bedroom, as an example. Maybe a
where we're based anyway.
Yeah, I mean, where we're based. Obviously, if you're going to London, then you're going to the gross is going to be higher, which is obviously beneficial. But yeah, I would say that. So if you're multiplying that by a lot of properties, then it may sound less than rent to rent. The total turnover is less, but you don't have to pay bills. So your biggest cost is your team.
Yeah, I was going to say, just more to finish on the finance, what are the costs of running a management company? Some of them will overlap with rent to rent. Yeah,
some of them will. Like, you got obviously your PMS. So you got, like, for example, we use Tokeet, which is, our channel manager. Then we use Price Labs, which is obviously, the price. It helps us automate that. So they're just 2 biggest ones. We also use Guest Flow as well, which is massive. That's a newer product which helps us manage their day-to-day bookings and guest comms.
Yeah, all the softwares that make it efficient. And
so they're the main costs. Then you obviously have your team. So we have 6 team members. Some of them part-time, some of them full-time. So they're the big ones. Obviously, then you got the setup costs. So outside that, you're pretty in the green. You obviously then have the spending power of your business.
Yeah, and it's really just business costs, isn't it?
This is why we do this. Management is a cash flow business.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to just have this business. We're quite ambitious. We want to have multiple different businesses. We want to do flipping or development ourselves. We want to go into other things like that as well. So this allows us to really grow the money without the liability and still achieve the results as well. So I won't bore you into too much finance, but it is good to know because
Zach loves the numbers.
I do love the numbers. This
is how this podcast is going to go. Yeah. I'll talk about all the ops. Zach will talk about the numbers.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can't wait to do one on revenue management. I'm really interested to do it. It's so one of the most important things on there.
Yeah.
So what should we leave the money for? What question? What little wisdom piece?
Who do you think management is for? If someone's listening to this and they're thinking, "Oh, I was going to do rent to rent. Should I do management?" Or they've got a few rent to rents, and they're thinking, "Oh, is this right for me? Should I be doing it?" What would you say? Some things to consider.
It's anyone should do it. I don't think people should be doing rent to rent long term if they wanted to grow. If someone wants to scale. So if someone wants to keep scaling, I don't think they should do rent to rent. Benefits are, yes, you can get cash flow, but you're having to put the money in. I think someone that has under 5 properties, I think maybe not if they have the money to keep growing. But the problem is that then they face all these VAT implications, and it's just it can really smash. I think
it's down to goals, right? If you want to scale as a business, we feel like management is a great way to do that. If you've got loads of money to invest in, you want to do loads of rent to rents, that's fine too. But we kind of feel like management's the way to go for scaling. I think we know people that have got 2-3 rent to rents, and that's a nice sort of we manage them. For them, it's a nice passive sort of investment for them. So maybe if you're not trying to scale as much, that's kind of a nice way to start, or just kind of to go with, right?
If you want to make over 10 grand a month and you want to do it quick, do management.
Yeah.
If you want to take a year and a half and build your rent to rents and just furnish them all, and obviously you can lease stuff and everything, then do rent to rent. That's just my kind of take on it. Everyone's different, and you're gonna.
There's no right or wrong. It's just how we feel.
You're gonna go on YouTube and watch videos of people that talk about rent to rent, and that's it. And that's what's going to be in front of your face.
Yeah. So if you are wondering, just keep learning about them.
Yeah, and don't turn away opportunities if you don't have the money. The management's right there.
Yeah, there's always.
And if you don't want to manage, tell me, and we'll manage it if we like it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, episode 2 done. Exciting. What are we talking about in the next episode?
I think we'll go into some of the key parts of just even rent to rent and management, how you make this successful. So you got your deal, you got deal 1, deal 2, deal 3. How do you make that successful? So I want to touch on revenue management. It's so important. We're going to go through the operations and go through that kind of stuff.
It's easy to talk about getting deals, right? But having successful running Airbnbs.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to get into next.
75 to 80% occupancy, making money for everyone involved. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Not losing money.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, let's get into it. Next episode.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. We'll leave some info below on like where you can find us elsewhere, like Instagram, TikTok, things like that. But yeah, any questions, reach out. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you on episode 3.